Hey, what's up? Welcome back. Now let me see if this is working now. Yo, yo, yo.
Oh, hey.
Yo, yo, yo. Hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. That's not right. Do, do, do. Do, 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 do. It's totally working. All right, cool. Let's try this again. I'm recording. Okay. Chapter 10. Sophris. She has to die. There is no other way. What? Goddess, Sophris, we can't do that. Grundle waved his giant arm in exasperation. Joran looked grief-stricken. Grundle, what else can we do? The murder she's guilty of is all the way back on Therm. If we deliver her to the Royal Guard, they'll want to know why she killed the man. You know what that'll mean. We'll be embroiled in a rash of shit the like we've never seen. Portillion will be in even more danger. And worst of all, we have no way of knowing if this gang will come after her. Who knows what we'd be up against? Grundle was crestfallen. He'd promised her they would find some way to deal with this, but clearly it was hopeless. So what's our option? Throw her out the airlock? It's barbaric. Sophris sighed. He did not relish such an action, but they truly had no choice. Sophris sighed, then spoke. She is a murderer, Grundle. She is incredibly dangerous. We can't count on anyone to punish her properly. We have no idea who else is involved. The only people we can trust are in this room. The three men stared, half at each other and half at the wall, focused not on the current moment, but on what a future without Faline might look like. Oh, we're good. Cool. You're talking about making the three of us her judges, jurors, and executioners. Grundle was shaking with fury. We'll have to keep this secret, which means lying to goddess knows how many people. For the rest of our lives, we'll know we chose to enact our own justice rather than letting her face her accusers in court. And we'd know it was premeditated, cold-blooded, without remorse. And we'd all know that at any time the other two could ruin our lives if they reveal our secret. Joran spoke. Grundle, I hear you, but hear me. No one will care that a suspected murderess killed herself. No one. Her crime will be lightly linked to us, but nothing will come of it. The killing was apparently random, which does no damage to us or the Avandi's administration. We're safe from any prosecution as long as we act in accordance with our mission. You mean our mission to steal a priceless artifact from the Daughters of Mercy? Grundle was clear. Grundle was clearly frustrated. He was throwing out anything that might undermine the plot. He knew it was unnecessary, though. If he didn't agree to it, they'd do it without him. He could try to stand up to them, but Sophris could calm his mind and make his great strength moot. His rationale for not killing her, His rationale for not killing her was perfectly adequate, but they couldn't outweigh the obvious. She was a deadly liability. Grundle turned to face the wall. Joran gently touched his arm. I wish there was another way, Grundle. I do. If someone must do it, it may as well be me. He looked at both of them, eyes full of quiet judgment. They looked to each other, pondering. Very well, Grundle. If you need any assistance, I can handle it. Thank you, Sophris. He tipped his head. Joran. And with that, he left. The door whizzed shut behind him as the two men pondered each other's stricken faces. So that's Sophris. That's a surprising chapter because Sophris, we thought he was like a pacifist, and here he is suggesting an extrajudicial killing. Pretty wild. Chapter 41. Portillion was concerned. For some reason, Joran was hustling him off to the atmospheric chamber in the fore of the ship. He'd told him he had to hide there until further notice. Portillion whispered back to the bounty hunter, who was doing his best to help Portillion walk down various lower corridors without attracting attention from the other members of the crew. Portillion's existence was a closely guarded secret. The fact that Faline had found him made the men worry about other possible liabilities, namely Joss and Numerius. Portillion couldn't understand what the problem was. It didn't make sense. Who would want him dead? Why isn't Faline with you? Isn't she Why isn't Faline with you? Isn't she concerned about my safety? Joran stopped and stared at the young man. When it was clear he wasn't going to answer, Portillion looked forward and resumed walking. I'm thinking this chapter is supposed to be from Joran's perspective. They reached the atmospheric chamber without incident. Joran set Portillion up with a blanket and various essential items. Then they put together a tent behind one of the massive turbines. The room was safe for short-term visits. Maybe it's turbines. Then they put together a tent behind one of the massive turbines. The room was safe for short-term visits. He wouldn't have to be there long, or so Joran said. Portillion tried to reckon with this new situation. He couldn't fathom why Faline would be a danger. She was so kind, so soft with him the night before. What changed in her? Was she truly a bad person? Was that why they wouldn't tell him? He cursed his inexperience, his lack of understanding of facial expressions and social cues. He wished that he was as skilled with women as Joran or Numerius. Heck, even Grundle had the whole big man, soft heart thing going for him. All Portillion had was magic. It was all he'd ever had, really. His older brothers were the real heroes. They were dead now, though. The whole thing was riding on him. He hoped against hope that they'd be able to recover the statue. If they didn't, his brothers' lives would have been lost in vain, and he would be a failure. He could never go home, not ever again. His old life would be gone. His new life would be a nightmare. His old life would be gone. His new life would be a nightmare. He didn't trust himself to study magic on his own. He feared his art would suffer. Or even worse, that the monster that killed those men would manifest again, and he could do nothing to stop it. Kid, you gonna be okay? Portillion nodded. Joran nodded in return and left. Portillion was on his own. He settled into the little tent and began to study. All right. Replenish my fluids. Chapter 12. Faline. She was still crying, but with Grundle coming to her and talking things out, she wasn't quite so scared anymore. He'd softened enough to let her go. He'd said he'd look past the murder of the driver if she promised to go to the gang and try to rescue her daughter. She promised. She had her way out. All that was left were the details. How will they believe you killed me without a body? Grundle held her by each bicep, his eyes wet with emotion. You will have overdosed on your medication. The evidence will be plain. You will have taken my spacesuit and jettisoned yourself into space. You will have left a short recording of a suicide note. You will be convincing, and I will lie to my fellows. For all anyone will know, you'll be dead. They won't know if I warned you or if I helped you. They won't care because you'll be dead. Do you understand? She was so lucky. What a godsend it was meeting Grundle. He was an unusual man, the kind her grandmother would have wanted for her. Strong, quiet, kind, and gentle. And now this. He was truly a hero, the kind you only read about or see on the telescreens. She nodded. Yes, Grundle. She looked into his eyes. She felt her parts tingling. She wanted to curse herself for feeling aroused, but for once it made sense. She might never see another human being again. She could die and never again know the beauty of love, so why not embrace the feeling of physical desire? She gripped one of his hands to her stomach, slid his other behind her so his fingers were resting on her backside. She whispered into his ear, Grundle, I may never see you again. Would you give me a goodbye kiss? I forgot that there's like sexy stuff in these books a few times. Shit, this is going to be awkward. Chapter 13. Grundle. Grundle stared at her, surprised but not necessarily disgusted. Faline, He wanted to tell her that he had feelings for Ayana, but he couldn't. Faline was beautiful, exciting, and right there in his arms, asking for his affection. They kissed, a deep, passionate kiss that moved mountains. He had no idea a simple kiss could feel so amazing. Was this some unknown power of the Yefrit, or something honed by her like her skill in knife fighting? He couldn't think about it more, though, because within seconds they were upon each other, half naked and fumbling, both knowing they should stop and yet hungry to indulge every act their minds could envision. Time stopped for a few minutes, longer, perhaps. The walls were thick, and Sophros wasn't watching. When they were finished, Grundle felt crushed. What they had experienced would only be singular. How sad to know they would never see each other again, let alone have another moment powerful as this one. Say that again, I was typing. How sad to know they would never see each other again, let alone have another moment as powerful as this one. I'll do one more. Chapter 14. Faline was confused. Oh, chapter 14. Faline. Faline was confused to the extreme. She'd hated these heroes to begin with, and now she was developing feelings for one of them, right before she was being sent into space with a narrow chance of being rescued. Goddess, how twisted fate could be. Goddess? This poor fool's religion must have rubbed off on me. Grundle was an incredible kisser, and his fingers much gentler than one would imagine, and more dexterous. Yeah, I told you it was awkward. Oh boy. All right, come back next time. It's Ayana. I guess I'm supposed to end this. You can't end this.